Watchers, don't forget to let us know what you think of the topics we've covered on Facebook and Twitter, and see our full shows at RT.com. Coming up, our own Sean Stone discusses the issue of Islamophobia in U.S. politics with former Republican candidate for Michigan House of Representatives Ron Dwyer, and RT's Natasha Sweet has the latest on Facebook's new war room against political influence. Stay tuned to Watching the Hawks.
I'm Mike Papantonio, host of America's Lawyer. When white-collar criminals pile sky-high profits and sneer at the pain of those they rip off and ruin, well, that's where I come in. Question more.
When you question more, you get more. Not some tired parade of the same old voices. What you get is more. Insight, distance, depth. Stories from all over the world. More than the mainstream could ever deliver. Lift your eyes to all that remains in question.
Do you know what you've got in your hand? You might think it's a phone, but in the news, we see it as TV. With Pluto TV, the free and unlimited TV app, you can get TV everywhere for free. And since TV is everywhere, so is RT. Streaming on all your favorite devices, outdoors or inside, any time of day or night. Catch all of our award-winning shows, news, and cutting-edge analysis everywhere you look and wherever you go. Question more.
RT America brings you stories of worldwide significance, news the corporate media refuses to show you. From social movements to civil wars to tech breakthroughs to epidemics, because our journalists and audience alike dare to question more.
Dear viewer, thank you for finally changing the channel. I understand you're tired of networks that blur news with views. You're tired of commentary presented as fact and facts presented as commentary. They are not the same, no matter what the partisan hack want you to think. You know me. I'm famous for my views, and you'll get them. And the news. And me. Yours truly, Scotty Nell Hughes.
The game of politics, the strategy of fear, has long been the go-to move for those who seek power but don't have the patience or fortitude to earn it. Playing off irrational fears and dumbing down complex issues into simple blame games is the bread and butter of this new politics of fear. And nowhere is that more apparent than in the Islamophobia that has been on parade throughout the current U.S. political landscape. According to a recent study by Muslim Advocates, a legal advocacy group, there has been a sharp increase in anti-Muslim rhetoric from election campaigns in the state and local levels. Watching the Hawks' own Sean Stone recently sat down with former Republican candidate for the Michigan House of Representatives, Ron Dwyer, to discuss the Islamophobia he has seen in state and local elections.
It's a split. There are those in the Republican Party that are very accepting of Muslims and Islam. In fact, there was a person that was actually a district chair in my state who mentioned that he has several Muslims in his family. So, yes, the Republican Party is accepting of those of the Islamic faith and Muslims. But then you also have those on the other side that want to spread false hatred, false information for their own personal gain.
So tell us a bit more about that. I mean, what have you experienced directly in frankly, what has been called Islamophobia and the spreading of that mentality?
Well, in part of the party here, there's a couple of organizations, and I don't want to name names because I don't want to give them any publicity, but they have worked very hard to try to silence my voice. In fact, my campaign in my district was sabotaged by this group to try to make sure that I did not win the seat in my district. So I didn't make it past the primary. But these people, they know the truth. I've actually given them historical evidence as well as verses in the Quran to contradict some of their hatred and their misinformation, but they continue to go ahead and spread misinformation and hate across members of the party for their own personal gain.
To my understanding, some of the refugees that had come over from the civil war in Syria that notoriously had, support for some of the various, groups that are operating against the Assad government, coming from, the Obama administration and from the U.S. and other countries, basically facilitating those parties in the war, what's called civil war. But as Syria has descended into this violence and chaos, refugees have been accepted into, parts of Michigan. How has the reaction been, let's say, from the political side of things? Do you find a lot of rhetoric against, refugees from countries like Syria? Is that a very hot topic issue?
A few years ago it was. It's kind of cooled down a little bit. But actually, I will say this, our Republican governor, Governor Rick Snyder, was actually very accepting for the Syrian refugees. In fact, he wanted to bring in more Syrian refugees. I personally, firsthand, have seen what the Syrian refugees have done in the city of Detroit proper, per se. They've taken neighborhoods that were completely run down, that you wouldn't feel safe walking down the sidewalk on in the middle of the day, into bright, vibrant neighborhoods. The homes that were maybe once worth $2,000, I mean, it was sad. You could buy a house for $2,000. Now are selling for $130,000 to $170,000. You could walk down those streets at 3 a.m. in the morning and not have to worry about anything. So I think people are starting to see the positive impact that Syrians and even other refugees from the Middle East are bringing here to the Metro Detroit region, which, by the way, is one of the largest Arabic populations in the country.
As an insider within the Republican Party, I mean, I'm not necessarily an insider, but someone who is a Republican, what is your take then on Trump's sort of rhetoric, and how much has he stoked the overall, let's say, racism against Arabs and other ethnicities, including Latins and Mexicans, and also stoked, fears of Islam? Have you seen a change since he has been running and come into power?
That's a good question, but, he, I think, was pandering to a particular group, and I think he was working to get that group's support. It's a fringe Christian group that kind of controls some of the politics in the Republican side, and a great secret that I'm going to expose here, that fringe extremist Christian side has pushed out good Catholics and has pushed out Muslims, because my background is Catholicism. And the Catholics have gone to the Democrat Party, Muslims have gone to the Democrat Party. But it's odd, because if you look at the party platform about family and life and freedom of religion and limited government and just being able to be who you want to be and practice your own faith, that is the Republican platform. That fits what Catholics and Muslims believe in. But there is a push to keep Muslims and Catholics out of the Republican Party and kind of leave them without a voice, because the Democrat Party doesn't technically represent Muslims or Catholics either, because they're not the party. They don't believe in religion, and they believe government is God. So there is a huge group of people that just don't seem to have a place that they can call home. And one of the things that I'm working with, Sean, is I'm getting involved in interfaith here in Metro Detroit. In fact, I was at a interfaith organization yesterday, a meeting that was well attended by several hundred people. We had Catholic priests and we had imams from the local mosques here and the local churches here talk about how we can get together and how we can break bread and get to better know one another. And coming from a Catholic background and being a historian studying Islam, I've seen how close Catholicism and Islam are to one another. I mean, it's amazing how close.